The fluorescent lights of Mercy General Hospital's maternity ward hummed overhead as Elena Volkov Chen gripped the edge of her bed, another contraction tearing through her body like lightning. 8 months and 3 weeks pregnant, she'd been admitted 2 hours ago with preeclampsia, dangerously high blood pressure that threatened both her life and her daughter's. "Mrs. Chen, your numbers are still elevated," the nurse said, adjusting the fetal monitor strapped across Elena's swollen belly. "We're going to need to induce labor tonight. Dr. Morrison is on her way." Elena nodded, her dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. She reached for her phone with trembling hands, pulling up Marcus's contact for the 4th time in 2 hours. Still no response to her texts. "I'm in the hospital. They're inducing labor. Please come. Baby's in distress. I need you. Marcus, please." The read receipts mocked her. He'd seen every message. He just didn't care anymore. Elena closed her eyes against the tears that threatened, one hand moving protectively to her belly where Sophia, her daughter, her miracle, kicked weakly. She had known her marriage was dying for months, had felt Marcus pulling away like a tide retreating before a tsunami. But she'd told herself it was work stress, that things would get better after the baby came, that love could survive anything if you just held on tight enough. She'd been wrong about a lot of things. "Elena?" A familiar voice cut through her thoughts, and Elena's eyes snapped open. Vivian Drake stood in the doorway of her hospital room, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. 27 years old, blonde, perfectly made up even at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Elena's monthly salary as a freelance translator. Marcus's colleague from the law firm, Marcus's friend. Marcus's... "What are you doing here?" Elena's voice came out weaker than she intended. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Vivian's smile was sharp as broken glass. "I'm here to deliver a message from Marcus." "A message?" Elena struggled to sit up straighter, but another contraction hit, stealing her breath. The monitors started beeping urgently. "He's not coming." Vivian stepped into the room, her heels clicking on the linoleum with predatory precision. "He asked me to tell you that he's filing for divorce. The papers will be served as soon as you're discharged." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. "What? Oh, come on. You can't be that surprised." Vivian moved closer, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. "Did you really think Marcus wanted to be tied down to a frumpy translator who let herself go? Look at you, Elena. You're enormous. You're boring. You're nothing." Elena's hands shook as she reached for the call button, but Vivian was faster. She grabbed Elena's wrist, her perfectly manicured nails digging in hard enough to leave marks. "Get your hands off me," Elena gasped. "I'm in labor. My baby." "Your baby is the problem," Vivian hissed. "Marcus doesn't want to be a father. He doesn't want this life. He wants me. We've been together for 8 months, Elena. 8 months of him coming to my apartment after work, telling me about what a burden you've become. How trapped he feels. You're lying." But even as Elena said it, pieces started clicking into place. The late nights Marcus blamed on client meetings, the way he'd stopped touching her around her 4th month of pregnancy, the text messages he'd delete before she could see them, the smell of unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. "Am I?" Vivian released Elena's wrist and pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos with casual cruelty. "Here's us in Napa last month when he told you he had a conference. Here's us at that new rooftop restaurant. And this one," she held up a photo of Marcus kissing her neck while she laughed at the camera, This one's my favorite. He took me to the Four Seasons for Valentine's Day. Where did you spend Valentine's Day, Elena? Oh, that's right. Home alone because you were too pregnant to go out. Elena felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart. That had been breaking slowly for months. This was different. This was the final shattering of every illusion she'd built around her marriage. "Why are you telling me this now?" she whispered. "Why are you here?" "Because I'm tired of waiting." Vivian's voice turned vicious. "I'm tired of being the secret. I'm tired of Marcus talking about custody arrangements and co-parenting schedules. So here's how this is going to work, Elena. You're going to sign whatever divorce papers he gives you without asking for anything. No alimony, no child support, no claims on his assets. You're going to disappear from his life completely." "I have rights," Elena said, her voice stronger now despite the pain radiating through her body. "My daughter has rights. You can't just—" The slap came without warning. Vivian's palm connected with Elena's face, hard enough to snap her head to the side, the sharp crack echoing through the hospital room. Elena's vision exploded into stars, her cheek burning, her ears ringing. The fetal monitor started screaming as her blood pressure spiked dangerously. "You have nothing," Vivian spat. "You are nothing. And if you try to take a penny from Marcus, I will make your life a living hell. Do you understand me?" The door burst open. 2 nurses rushed in, followed by Dr. Morrison, her face pale with shock. "What's going on in here?" Dr. Morrison demanded. "Who are you?" "I'm leaving," Vivian said smoothly, her voice instantly transformed into something sweet and concerned. "I just came to check on my friend." But she became hysterical. "I think the labor is affecting her mental state." "Security!" One of the nurses was already on the phone. "We need security to maternity, room 347, immediately." Vivian walked toward the door, pausing just long enough to lean close to Elena's ear. "Remember what I said. Stay away from what's mine." Then she was gone, her perfume lingering in the air like poison. Dr. Morrison was at Elena's bedside immediately, checking her vitals, her blood pressure, the baby's heart rate. "Elena, your BP is 180 over 110. We need to get you to delivery now. Can you tell me what happened?" "She hit me," Elena said, her voice distant, disconnected. She could feel her daughter moving frantically inside her, responding to her mother's terror and pain. "She said Marcus wants a divorce. She hit me." "Security has her," the nurse said, returning from the hallway. "They're holding her at the elevator." "I want her arrested," another voice said from the doorway. And Elena's world stopped. The woman standing in the entrance to her hospital room was 58 years old, dressed in an immaculate Armani suit, her silver blonde hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from ice. She was tall, commanding, with gray eyes that matched Elena's exactly. Eyes that Elena hadn't seen in 5 years. Eyes that belonged to a woman who was supposed to be dead. "Mama?" Elena whispered, wondering if she was hallucinating from the pain and shock. Elena Volkov stepped into the room like a queen entering her domain. Behind her, 2 men in expensive suits flanked the doorway, security, private security, the kind that billionaires employed. "Call the police," Catherine said to the nearest nurse, her accent still carrying traces of her Russian roots despite 30 years in America. "I want that woman charged with assault. I want her arrested tonight. And I want a copy of every security camera recording from this floor for the past hour." Dr. Morrison stared. "Ma'am, I don't know who you are, but I'm Elena Volkov. I'm Elena's mother, and I'm about to ensure that the woman who just assaulted my pregnant daughter spends a very long time regretting it. Catherine moved to Elena's bedside, her hand gentle as she cupped her daughter's injured cheek. I'm here, Moye Solonse. Mama's here, and I promise you, no one will ever hurt you again. But you're dead, Elena sobbed. The car accident. They told me you were dead. I let them think that. I'll explain everything later. Catherine's voice softened infinitesimally. Right now, we need to focus on bringing your daughter safely into this world. Dr. Morrison, what's Elena's status? Dr. Morrison seemed to snap back to professional mode. Severe preeclampsia. We need to induce immediately, possibly move to emergency C-section, depending on how the baby responds. Her blood pressure spiked dramatically after the assault. Then do what you need to do, Catherine said. She looked at her security team. One of you stays with Elena at all times. No one enters this room without my approval. And I want Marcus Chen located within the hour. Mama, I don't understand, Elena gasped as another contraction hit. Where have you been? Why didn't you tell me you were alive? Because telling you would have put you in danger. Catherine's expression was harder than diamonds. But that danger has passed now, and I'm done hiding. I'm done letting people think the Volkov family is weak or vulnerable or gone. The nurse who'd called security returned, breathless. The police are on their way. Security has the woman detained, but she's threatening to call her lawyer. She says she's dating Marcus Chen and has every right to visit. Catherine's smile was terrifying in its coldness. Is that so? Interesting. I believe Marcus Chen is married to my daughter, which would make this woman's claim rather complicated, legally speaking. Elena felt her world spinning. Her mother was alive. Marcus was divorcing her. She'd been assaulted in her hospital bed, and now she was going into labor under circumstances that felt more like a nightmare than reality. Mrs. Volkov, one of the security guards said quietly, we have confirmation. Marcus Chen is currently at 1847 Riverside Drive, apartment 4B. That's Vivian Drake's address, Elena whispered. He's been living with her. Catherine's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. How long? She said 8 months. Elena's voice broke. 8 months of lies. I've been pregnant almost that whole time, and he's been betraying you in every way that matters, Catherine finished. She looked at Dr. Morrison. How long until the baby arrives? If we induce now, probably 8 to 12 hours for first-time labor. If we do a C-section, we could have the baby within the hour. Elena's choice, Catherine said firmly. What do you want, Dokshka? Elena looked at her mother, alive, powerful, protecting her the way she'd always protected her, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not hope exactly. Something harder. Something that felt like steel forming in the place where her broken heart had been. I want to do what's best for Sophia, she said quietly. Whatever gets her here safely. Then C-section, Dr. Morrison decided. Her blood pressure is too unstable for a long labor. We'll prep her now. As the nurses began moving Elena's bed toward the operating room, Catherine walked beside her, one hand holding Elena's, her presence solid and real and impossibly alive. Mama, Elena said, Marcus doesn't know about you. He doesn't know about Volkov Pharmaceuticals or the money or any of it. He thinks I'm just a translator. He thinks I have no family. Catherine's smile was sharp enough to cut. I know, Solnse. I've been watching from a distance for 5 years. I know everything about Marcus Chen, his salary, his assets, his ambitions. She paused. And I know exactly what he and his mistress are about to lose. What do you mean? I mean that Marcus Chen and Vivian Drake just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Catherine's gray eyes, Elena's eyes, glittered with something that might have been rage or might have been justice. They hurt you. They hurt my grandchild. And when someone hurts a Volkov, they don't just face consequences. They face complete and total destruction. The elevator doors opened, and they rolled Elena toward the surgical wing. Behind them, police officers were arriving to question Vivian Drake about the assault. Somewhere in the city, Marcus Chen was probably celebrating his freedom. Completely unaware that his wife's supposedly dead mother had just returned from the grave with the resources and the will to dismantle everything he'd built. Elena felt Sophia kick inside her, strong and determined, and for the first time in hours, she smiled. "Tell me everything," she said to her mother as they wheeled her into pre-op. "Tell me where you've been and why you faked your death. Tell me about Volkov Pharmaceuticals. Tell me about the empire I didn't know I was heir to." Catherine squeezed her hand. "First, we bring Sophia into the world safely. Then, my darling daughter, then we show Marcus Chen and his mistress exactly what happens when someone underestimates a Volkov woman." As the anesthesiologist began prepping Elena for surgery, as the monitors beeped steadily and the medical team moved with practiced efficiency, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in months. Power. Not borrowed power or reflected power or the power of being someone's wife. Her own power. The power that came from being Catherine Volkov's daughter. The power that came from realizing that while Marcus had been planning his escape, her mother had been planning something far more devastating. Revenge. Or, as Catherine would probably call it, justice. The surgical lights were too bright, turning everything into sharp-edged clarity that Elena almost couldn't bear. She lay on the operating table, a blue drape blocking her view of Dr. Morrison's work below her waist, feeling pressure but no pain thanks to the epidural. Catherine stood beside her head, still in her Armani suit, one hand gripping Elena's with surprising strength. "Talk to me, Mama," Elena said, her voice shaking. "I need to hear your voice. I need to know this is real." Catherine's expression softened in a way Elena remembered from childhood. Before the empire, before the danger, before everything got complicated. "What do you want to know first?" "Why did you let me think you were dead?" The question came out raw. 5 years of grief condensed into 7 words. "Do you have any idea what that did to me?" "I do," Catherine said quietly. "And I'm sorry, Moye Sonse. I'm sorry for every tear you shed, every moment you felt alone. But if I had told you I was alive, they would have used you to find me. And if they'd found me, they would have killed us both." "Who's they?" Dr. Morrison's voice interrupted. "Baby's crowning. Elena, you're going to feel some pressure." Elena gasped as sensation flooded through her body, not pain, but the strange pulling feeling of her daughter being lifted from her womb. Then, suddenly, miraculously, there was crying. High-pitched, indignant, furious at being pulled from warmth into harsh light. "It's a girl," Dr. Morrison announced, holding up a tiny, squirming creature covered in vernix and blood and absolutely perfect. Sophia Elena Chen, born at 11:47 p.m., 6 pounds, 4 ounces. "Volkov," Elena said firmly, tears streaming down her face. "Sophia Elena Volkov. Not Chen, never Chen again." Catherine's hand tightened on hers. "That's my girl." They placed Sophia on Elena's chest for a brief moment, skin to skin, and Elena felt something fundamental shift in her universe. This tiny person, red-faced and wailing, was hers. Not Marcus's, not the Chen family's, hers. And she would protect her the way her own mother had protected her, fiercely, completely, without mercy for anyone who threatened her. "We need to finish up and get her to recovery," Dr. Morrison said gently. "Mom can hold her while we close." A nurse carefully transferred Sophia to Catherine's arms, and Elena watched her mother. This woman who'd built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing, who'd faked her own death, who radiated power like other people radiated heat, completely transform. Catherine's face softened, tears sliding down her cheeks as she looked at her granddaughter. "Moya vnuchka," Catherine whispered in Russian. "My granddaughter. You're going to change the world, little one. Just like your mother. Just like your grandmother." 2 hours later, Elena lay in a private recovery room that Catherine had somehow arranged within minutes of their arrival. Not the standard shared recovery ward, but a suite that looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A private bathroom with a shower, and enough space for the security team that Catherine had stationed outside the door. Sophia slept in a bassinet beside the bed, swaddled in hospital blankets, her tiny face peaceful now that she'd been fed and changed. Elena couldn't stop staring at her, memorizing every detail. The dark hair that would probably lighten, the shape of her nose, the way her fingers curled into perfect little fists. "She's beautiful," Catherine said from the armchair where she'd been making phone calls in rapid Russian for the past hour. "She has your mouth, my eyes." "Tell me," Elena said. "No more delays. I want to know everything." Catherine set down her phone and folded her hands in her lap. For a moment, she looked older than her 58 years, the weight of secrets visible in the lines around her eyes. "You remember when I left Russia in 1991, she began. "You were too young to understand the real reasons. I told you it was for opportunity, for a better life. That was true, but incomplete." Elena nodded, adjusting her hospital gown. Her incision throbbed despite the painkillers, but she ignored it. This was more important. "What I didn't tell you was that your father, my husband, had been involved with the wrong people. The Bratva, Russian mafia." Catherine's voice was flat, reciting facts. "He owed them money, a lot of money. When he couldn't pay, they killed him. Made it look like a car accident, but I knew. I knew because they came to me afterward and said I could pay his debt in other ways. Work for them. Use my chemistry background to help manufacture drugs." "Oh God, Mama." "So I ran. I took you. You were 6 months old. And I ran to America with nothing but some cash I'd hidden and the formulas in my head. Pharmaceutical formulas I developed while working at the Moscow Research Institute." Catherine stood and walked to the window, her silhouette stark against the city lights. "I started over. Changed our names from Volkova to Volkov. Found work in a New Jersey laboratory. Saved every penny. And when I had enough, I started my own company. Volkov Pharmaceuticals. Yes. I had 3 patents for pain management medications that I'd developed in Russia but never filed. I filed them here, licensed them to major pharmaceutical companies, and used the revenue to fund research and development." Catherine's voice gained strength, pride entering it. Within 10 years, Volkov Pharmaceuticals was worth $500 million. Within 20 years, $5 billion. Today, $12.3 billion in assets, facilities in 7 countries, and a research pipeline that includes treatments for Alzheimer's, certain cancers, and autoimmune diseases. Elena felt the numbers wash over her like cold water. 12 billion. Her mother was worth $12 billion, and Elena had been living in a 1-bedroom apartment, taking freelance translation jobs to pay rent, budgeting carefully for baby expenses. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Why let me struggle?" "Because I wanted you to have a normal childhood. A safe childhood." Catherine turned back to face her. "The Russian Bratva has long memories, Doshka. They knew I'd fled with valuable intellectual property. They knew I'd built something successful. And for years they've been trying to find me, to force me to work for them or simply to punish me for running. 5 years ago," Elena said slowly, "the car accident that supposedly killed you was real. The attempt was real." Catherine's jaw tightened. "They found me, sent 2 men to force my car off a bridge. My driver was killed. I nearly died. But I survived, and I realized something. As long as they thought I was alive, they'd keep coming. They'd eventually find you, find any family I had, use you against me. So you faked your death. I staged a funeral, complete with a closed casket and death certificate. I let the world think Elena Volkov had died in that accident, and I disappeared." Catherine moved back to her chair, sitting with the grace of someone accustomed to boardrooms and power. "I handed over operational control of Volkov Pharmaceuticals to my COO, but remained the shadow owner through a series of trusts and shell corporations. I've been running my empire from the shadows for 5 years, watching you from a distance, making sure you were safe." Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I was so alone, Mama. When you died, when I thought you died, I had no one. And then I met Marcus, and I thought, finally, I had a family again. I know. I watched you meet him, watched you fall in love, watched you get married." Catherine's voice hardened. "And I had him investigated immediately." "You what?" "Doshka, I'm worth $12 billion. Do you think I would let my only daughter marry someone without knowing everything about them?" Catherine pulled out her phone and scrolled through files. Marcus Chen, born 1989, Seattle, Washington. Graduated Harvard Law School, 2014. Hired by Morrison, Wright & Associates in 2015. Current salary, $450,000 annually. Assets, approximately $1.2 million, including his apartment, savings, and investment portfolio. She continued scrolling. Dating history, 3 serious relationships before you, all ending when the women wanted marriage and children. Psychological profile suggests narcissistic tendencies, ambition that overrides loyalty, and a pattern of viewing relationships as transactional. You knew he was wrong for me. I knew he was dangerous for you in subtle ways. But you loved him, and you're an adult. I couldn't forbid you from marrying him. Catherine's expression was pained. I had to let you make your own choices, even when I suspected they were mistakes. All I could do was watch and prepare to protect you when the inevitable happened. The inevitable, Elena repeated bitterly. You knew he'd leave me. I knew Marcus Chen was the type of man who would eventually prioritize his own desires over his commitments. I didn't know about Vivian Drake specifically until 2 months ago. Elena's head snapped up. 2 months? You've known for 2 months that Marcus was cheating? My security team flagged her when surveillance showed Marcus spending multiple nights at her apartment. I had her investigated too. Catherine's smile was sharp. Vivian Drake, age 27, real estate agent at Prestige Properties, though her sales record is mediocre at best. Maintains an Instagram following of 95,000 through purchased followers and heavily filtered photos. She presents herself as a luxury lifestyle influencer, but her actual net worth is approximately $40,000, not counting credit card debt of $28,000. So she targeted Marcus for his money. She targeted Marcus because she saw him at a firm event, looked him up, saw that he was married, and made a calculated decision that a successful lawyer was her ticket to the lifestyle she wants. Catherine's voice dripped with contempt. She's a gold digger who picked the wrong target. Marcus has money, yes, but his wife's mother could buy and sell him 1,000 times over. He doesn't know about you, Elena said. I never told him about Volkov Pharmaceuticals. After you died, I couldn't bear to talk about you. It hurt too much. And you always told me to be careful about men who might want me for your money. So I just let Marcus think I was alone in the world. Which is why he feels safe discarding you. Catherine's eyes flashed with anger. He thinks you're vulnerable. He thinks you have no resources, no support, no way to fight back. He thinks he can divorce you, pay minimal child support, and walk away to build his new life with his mistress. Can he? Elena's voice was small. The prenup I signed is worthless. Catherine pulled out a folder from her briefcase, spreading documents across the tray table. You signed a prenuptial agreement drafted by Marcus's friend at the firm, an agreement that was never reviewed by your own attorney. An agreement signed 3 days before your wedding when you were emotionally vulnerable and desperate to prove you trusted Marcus. An agreement that contains numerous provisions that violate California family law. Elena stared at the documents. It's not valid? It's marginally valid at best, and I've already retained the 3 best family law attorneys in Los Angeles to challenge it. Catherine's smile was predatory. But more importantly, Dochka, that prenup was based on both parties accurately representing their financial positions. Marcus represented himself as having approximately $800,000 in assets at the time of your marriage. You represented yourself as having minimal assets, which was technically true since I'd kept your inheritance in trust. But I actually have. You're the sole heir to Volkov Pharmaceuticals, a company worth $12.3 billion. You personally hold trusts valued at approximately $3.8 billion, which become accessible to you on your 32nd birthday, 6 months from now, or upon the birth of your first child. Catherine's voice was soft but fierce. Which happened 2 hours ago. Elena felt the world tilt. I'm worth billions of dollars. You are. You always have been. I just kept it protected until you were ready. Catherine stood and moved to the window again, her back to Elena. And now that Sophia is born, now that Marcus has shown his true nature, now that you've been assaulted by his mistress in a hospital bed, now you're ready. Ready for what? Catherine turned, and the expression on her face made Elena's breath catch. It wasn't cruelty exactly. It was something colder and more absolute. Justice. Ready to destroy them, both of them, completely and utterly. Catherine's voice was calm, conversational, discussing destruction the way other people discuss dinner plans. Marcus Chen and Vivian Drake are about to learn what happens when someone hurts a Volkov woman. Before Elena could respond, there was a knock at the door. One of Catherine's security team entered, followed by 2 police officers. Mrs. Volkov, the older officer said, I'm Detective Sarah Martinez, LAPD. This is my partner, Detective Chen, no relation to your son-in-law, she added with a wry smile. We're here about the assault that occurred earlier tonight. Thank you for coming so quickly. Catherine gestured to chairs. Please, sit. My daughter has just given birth, but she's able to give a statement. How are you feeling, Mrs. Chen? Detective Martinez asked Elena gently. It's Ms. Volkov now, Elena said firmly, and I'm feeling angry. Detective Martinez pulled out a notebook. Can you walk me through what happened? Elena recounted everything. Vivian entering her room, the cruel words about Marcus's affair, the demand that Elena sign away all rights to child support and alimony, and finally, the slap. She spoke calmly, methodically, while Catherine watched with visible pride. We've arrested Ms. Drake, Detective Chen said. She's currently being processed on charges of assault and battery. The hospital's security footage clearly shows her striking you, which makes this an open and shut case. She'll likely be arraigned tomorrow morning. What about bail? Catherine asked. Given that this is her first offense and it's a misdemeanor assault, bail will probably be set around $20,000. She'll likely post it and be released pending trial. I see. Catherine's expression didn't change. But Elena saw something calculating flash through her mother's eyes. And what about the harassment, the threats she made about custody and divorce? Verbal threats are harder to prosecute without witnesses or recording, Detective Martinez admitted. But combined with the assault, they establish a pattern of behavior that will be relevant in any family court proceedings. After the detectives left, Elena looked at her mother. She's going to be released tomorrow. Yes. And she'll probably go straight to Marcus. Tell him some version of events where she's the victim, and they'll start planning their next move. Catherine picked up her phone. Which is why we need to move first, while they're feeling confident and reckless. What are you planning? First, we file for divorce on your behalf. Not just divorce. We file for full custody of Sophia, restraining orders against both Marcus and Vivian, and a motion to freeze all marital assets pending division. Catherine was typing rapidly on her phone. Second, we ensure that Marcus discovers who I am in the most devastating way possible. How? Catherine's smile was terrifying in its coldness. We invite him here to meet his daughter, and we let him see exactly what he's thrown away. At 7:30 the next morning, Marcus Chen sat in Vivian's apartment, nursing his third cup of coffee and a headache that had nothing to do with alcohol. His phone had been ringing all night. Elena's number mostly, which he'd ignored. Then unknown numbers. Then his mother. Then his firm's managing partner. He'd finally turned it off around 3 a.m., too exhausted to deal with whatever crisis everyone seemed to think required his immediate attention. Marcus, baby, you need to see this. Vivian emerged from her bedroom wearing one of his shirts, her hair tousled artfully, holding her phone. Elena posted something on Facebook. I don't care what Elena posted. Marcus rubbed his temples. She's probably just being dramatic about the baby. I'll deal with it later. No, Marcus. You need to see this now. Vivian shoved her phone in his face. Marcus focused on the screen. It was a Facebook post from Elena's account, made 4 hours ago. The photo showed Elena in a hospital bed, exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny wrapped bundle. The caption read, Sophia Elena Volkov, born December 12th at 11:47 p.m., 4 hours, perfect in every way. Thank you to my mother, Catherine Volkov, for being here when I needed her most. Marcus stared at the name. Catherine Volkov. Elena's mother had died 5 years ago in a car accident. He'd gone to the funeral, had held Elena while she sobbed, had helped her pack up her mother's apartment. Is this some kind of joke? He muttered. Look at the comments, Vivian urged. Marcus scrolled down. There were hundreds of comments, and many of them seemed to be from people who knew something he didn't. Welcome back, Mrs. Volkov. So glad to hear you're safe. Catherine Volkov is alive? This is incredible news for the pharmaceutical industry. Does this mean Volkov Pharmaceuticals is coming back under family control? Congratulations on your granddaughter. The Volkov legacy continues. What the hell is Volkov Pharmaceuticals? Marcus asked. Vivian was already Googling. Her face went pale. Marcus, oh my God. What? She turned her laptop around. The screen showed the Wikipedia page for Volkov Pharmaceuticals, a pharmaceutical research and development company, founded 1995. Current valuation, $12.3 billion. Founder and shadow CEO, Catherine Volkov, presumed dead, 2019 to 2024. Marcus felt something cold slide down his spine. That can't be right. Elena's mother was a chemist. She worked at a lab in New Jersey. She lived in a small apartment. She drove a 10-year-old Honda. She was also apparently a secret billionaire. Vivian's voice was climbing toward hysteria. Marcus, your wife is the heir to a pharmaceutical empire worth $12 billion. Ex-wife, Marcus corrected automatically. Then the full implication hit him. Oh God, I served her with divorce papers yesterday. Technically, I told her you were filing for divorce while she was in labor, Vivian admitted in a small voice. And then I might have slapped her. Marcus stood up so fast, he knocked over his coffee. You what? She was being difficult. She was crying and making a scene, and I just wanted her to understand that she needed to step aside. Vivian was backing away from him. It wasn't that hard of a slap. She's fine. She was in preterm labor with dangerous blood pressure, and you assaulted her. Marcus grabbed his phone and turned it back on. Immediately it started buzzing, with missed calls and texts. 23 from his managing partner alone. The most recent text from his boss made his blood run cold. Call me immediately. The police were here asking about you in connection with an assault case. You're suspended pending investigation. The police? Marcus looked at Vivian. They arrested you? It was just a misdemeanor. I posted bail this morning. Vivian wrapped her arms around herself. Marcus, it's fine. It's going to be fine. Once we explained that Elena was being hysterical, that I was just trying to help. Help? Marcus felt something break inside him. Not his heart. That required the capacity for love he wasn't sure he possessed. But something like his self-image. The carefully constructed narrative of himself as the good guy, the successful lawyer, the man who was simply choosing his own happiness. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Marcus Chen? A woman's voice, cold and precise. Yes? This is Catherine Volkov. I believe you're married to my daughter. Marcus sank back onto the couch. Mrs. Volkov, I thought you were dead. Clearly, that was premature. Her voice could have frozen nitrogen. Mr. Chen, I'm calling to inform you that you have a daughter. Sophia Elena Volkov, born last night at 11:47 p.m. She's beautiful, healthy, and bears no resemblance to you whatsoever, which I consider a blessing. I want to see her. I have rights. You have nothing, Catherine interrupted. But I'm a generous woman, Mr. Chen. I'm going to give you one opportunity to meet your daughter. Today, noon. Mercy General Hospital, Private Wing, Suite 447. Come alone. Your mistress is not welcome. How do you know about? I know everything, Mr. Chen. I've known everything for months. The affair, the lies. The plan to divorce my daughter and abandon your child. I know about your assets, your debts, your career trajectory, your psychological profile. She paused. And now you're going to learn exactly what I know about you. Noon. Don't be late. She hung up. Marcus stared at his phone, his mind racing. $12 billion. Elena's mother was worth $12 billion, and he'd spent their entire marriage thinking Elena had no family, no resources, no safety net beyond him. What did she say? Vivian asked nervously. She wants me to meet the baby, alone. Marcus stood, looking around for his shoes. I need to go. Marcus, wait. We need a strategy. We need to figure out how to handle this. He looked at Vivian, really looked at her, and saw her clearly for the first time. Not the beautiful, exciting woman who'd made him feel young and desired, but a calculating social climber who'd targeted him for his money and now realized she'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. We don't need to do anything, Marcus said coldly. You assaulted my wife, ex-wife, my wife who just gave birth to my daughter, my wife whose mother could probably buy this entire building with the money she spends on coffee. Marcus grabbed his jacket. Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've cost me? What I've cost you? Vivian's voice turned shrill. You said you wanted out. You said Elena was boring and clingy and that you wanted to be with me. You said we'd get married, that we'd have a life together. That was when I thought Elena was nobody, Marcus shouted. That was when I thought she was just a translator with no family and no money. Not the heir to a pharmaceutical empire. The truth of his own words hit him like ice water. He'd loved Elena, or thought he loved her, until she became inconvenient. Until pregnancy made her less exciting, less available, less focused on his needs. And then Vivian had appeared, young and flattering and eager to please him, and he'd convinced himself that trading up was just smart life management. Now the woman he'd discarded was worth billions, and the woman he'd chosen was a social media influencer with credit card debt and pending assault charges. Get out, Vivian said, tears streaming down her face. Get out of my apartment. Marcus left without another word. As he drove toward Mercy General Hospital, his hands shaking on the steering wheel, Marcus tried to calculate the damage. His career was suspended. His wife, ex-wife, was an heiress. His daughter had been born in the middle of a scandal he'd created. And he was about to meet Catherine Volkov, a woman who'd apparently run a multi-billion-dollar empire from the shadows for 5 years. A woman who knew everything about him. A woman whose daughter he'd betrayed in the cruelest possible way. Marcus had spent his entire legal career representing clients in corporate negotiations. He knew how to recognize when someone had the advantage, when the power dynamic was so skewed that the outcome was predetermined. And as he pulled into the hospital parking lot, he realized with absolute certainty that he was walking into a negotiation he'd already lost. Marcus Chen had faced hostile witnesses, aggressive opposing counsel, and judges who seemed determined to rule against him. But nothing in his legal career had prepared him for the walk down the hospital corridor to Suite 447. The private wing of Mercy General looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Plush carpeting, original artwork on the walls, and a security desk where 2 men in expensive suits checked his ID with the thoroughness of Secret Service agents. Mr. Chen? One of them said, speaking into an earpiece. He's here. A moment later, a woman appeared. Mid-40s, dressed in a crisp business suit, carrying a tablet. Mr. Chen, I'm Patricia Volkov, Mrs. Catherine Volkov's executive assistant. Please follow me. Patricia Volkov? Are you related? Married to Mrs. Volkov's cousin. The Volkov family takes care of its own. Her tone suggested this was a lesson Marcus should pay attention to. Mrs. Volkov is waiting for you. Suite 447 was twice the size of a normal hospital room, with a separate sitting area, private bathroom, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Elena sat propped up in bed, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than Marcus's suit. She looked exhausted, but somehow more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. More herself. Beside her bed, in a clear bassinet, a tiny bundle slept peacefully. His daughter. Marcus felt something catch in his throat. He'd spent the past 8 months in varying degrees of denial about the pregnancy. It had been abstract, something happening to Elena's body that didn't quite feel real. But now, looking at that impossibly small person, reality crashed over him like a wave. "Elena," he said quietly. Mr. Chen." Catherine Volkov stood from an armchair in the corner, and Marcus found himself taking an involuntary step backward. The photographs he'd frantically Googled on the drive over hadn't done her justice. Catherine Volkov was tall, silver blonde, with gray eyes that seemed to see through him to something unpleasant underneath. She wore a black Chanel suit and pearls, and she moved with the kind of authority that came from decades of making people bend to her will. "Mrs. Volkov," Marcus managed. "I'm so glad you're not dead." "How generous of you." Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Please sit. We have a great deal to discuss." Marcus glanced at Elena, looking for some sign of the woman who'd loved him, who'd believed in him, who'd made excuses for his late nights and sudden mood changes. But Elena's expression was neutral, almost blank. Whatever connection they'd shared was gone, severed as cleanly as if she'd taken a knife to it. He sat in the chair Catherine indicated, feeling like a defendant at his own trial. "First," Catherine said, "let me establish the facts. You married my daughter 5 years ago. You claimed to love her. You got her pregnant. And then, while she was carrying your child, you began an affair with Vivian Drake that lasted 8 months. I never meant to hurt. You never meant to get caught," Catherine corrected. "There's a difference. You told Elena you wanted a divorce yesterday, hours before she went into premature labor with dangerous blood pressure. You allowed your mistress to enter Elena's hospital room where she verbally abused and physically assaulted a woman in active labor. Do I have the facts correct?" Marcus's mouth was dry. "That's one interpretation. It's the only interpretation supported by evidence." Catherine pulled out a tablet and turned it toward him. "Hospital security footage, time-stamped 9:17 p.m. yesterday. Would you like to watch your girlfriend slap my daughter?" The video played in silent condemnation. Vivian entering the room. Vivian leaning over Elena's bed, her face twisted with cruelty. Vivian's hand connecting with Elena's face hard enough to snap her head to the side. The fetal monitor screaming as Elena's blood pressure spiked. Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. "I didn't know Vivian was going to do that. But you knew she was coming to the hospital. You sent her to deliver your coward's message because you couldn't face Elena yourself." Catherine's voice was scalpel sharp. "Let me tell you what happens next, Mr. Chen. Vivian Drake is currently free on bail, but she will be convicted of assault and battery. The evidence is overwhelming, and I will personally ensure the district attorney pursues maximum penalties." "Maximum penalties for a first-time misdemeanor?" "Oh, it's not going to be a misdemeanor by the time my attorneys are finished," Catherine said pleasantly. "Assault on a pregnant woman in California can be prosecuted as aggravated assault under certain circumstances, particularly when that assault causes extreme emotional distress, resulting in emergency medical intervention. We have Dr. Morrison's statement that Elena's blood pressure reached dangerously high levels immediately following the attack, requiring emergency cesarean section to save both mother and baby. Marcus felt the walls closing in. You're going to charge Vivian with a felony? I'm going to ensure Vivian Drake faces the full consequences of her actions. Which brings us to you. Catherine's smile widened fractionally. Elena is filing for divorce today. Not the friendly, uncontested divorce you envisioned. A divorce that will expose every financial irregularity, every lie, every betrayal. My attorneys are already preparing depositions. I have a prenup. That prenup is worthless for several reasons. Catherine ticked them off on her fingers. First, it was drafted by your friend, not reviewed by Elena's own counsel. Second, it was signed 3 days before your wedding under duress. Third, and most importantly, it was based on fraudulent representation of financial positions. I disclosed all my assets, but Elena didn't disclose hers. Catherine's expression was triumphant. You see, Mr. Chen, my daughter is the sole heir to Volkov Pharmaceuticals. She has been since birth. I simply kept those assets in trust until she was ready to manage them. Trusts that become fully accessible upon the birth of her first child. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. How much? Elena is now worth approximately $3.8 billion personally, with future inheritance rights to an additional $8 billion when I pass. Which won't be for many years, I assure you. Catherine leaned forward. Your prenup was designed to protect your $1.2 million from a gold digger. Instead, you married a multi-billionaire heiress and abandoned her for a woman with $40,000 in assets and $28,000 in credit card debt. The numbers spun in Marcus's head like a slot machine landing on the worst possible combination. Elena, please, he turned to her desperately. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can... No, Marcus. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. We can't. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to lie to me for 8 months. You chose to use our marital funds to finance your affair. You chose to let your mistress assault me while I was in labor. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions that showed me exactly who you are. I want to be part of Sophia's life. I'm her father, miss. You're her biological father, Catherine interrupted. But fatherhood is earned, not automatic. You will have supervised visitation rights. 2 hours, twice a month, at a location of Elena's choosing, with a court-appointed supervisor present. That's ridiculous. No judge will. Every judge will, given the circumstances of Sophia's birth and your girlfriend's assault charge. Catherine's smile was razor-sharp. Did you really think you could discard my daughter and walk away unscathed, Mr. Chen? Did you think the Volkov family would simply accept your betrayal? Marcus looked at Elena, searching for any trace of the woman who'd loved him. You planned this. Both of you. You planned to destroy me. No, Marcus. You destroyed yourself. Elena's gray eyes, her mother's eyes, were completely calm. We're simply making sure everyone sees what you did. All we're doing is telling the truth. A knock at the door interrupted them. Patricia entered with another woman Marcus didn't recognize. Blonde, professional, carrying a leather briefcase. Ah, perfect timing, Catherine said. Marcus Chen, this is Rebecca Morgan, senior partner at Morgan, Hayes & Associates. She's representing Elena in the divorce proceedings. Rebecca, this is Mr. Chen. Rebecca Morgan smiled politely and handed Marcus a thick envelope. Marcus Chen, you've been served with divorce papers, a petition for full custody of the minor child Sophia Elena Volkov, a motion to freeze all marital assets pending equitable distribution, and a restraining order requiring you to maintain a distance of 500 feet from both Elena Volkov and Sofia Volkov, except during court-approved, supervised visitation. Marcus took the envelope with shaking hands. A restraining order? On what grounds? On the grounds that your girlfriend assaulted my client while she was in labor. That you have demonstrated a pattern of deception and emotional abuse. And that your presence poses a threat to my client's psychological well-being during her postpartum recovery period. Rebecca's voice was crisp, professional. These documents were filed at 8 a.m. this morning and approved by Judge Catherine Winters at 10:15 a.m. You have 30 days to respond. Wait. Marcus's legal training kicked in, despite his panic. Judge Winters approved a restraining order in 3 hours without a hearing? Judge Winters reviewed the hospital security footage, the police report regarding Ms. Drake's assault, and affidavits from medical staff about Elena's condition. She found sufficient evidence of imminent harm to grant an emergency protective order. Rebecca pulled out more papers. You're also being served with a deposition notice. We'll need you to provide documentation of all financial transactions over the past 2 years, including credit card statements, bank records, and receipts for any expenditures over $500. Marcus thought about the hotels, the restaurants, the jewelry he'd bought Vivian. Thousands of dollars of charges on the credit cards he shared with Elena. Marital assets spent on an extramarital affair. And one more thing, Catherine said pleasantly. Morrison, Wright & Associates, received a call from Volkov Pharmaceuticals this morning. Apparently, we're reviewing our legal representation for our California operations. Currently worth about $18 million annually in fees to your firm. I believe we're scheduled to meet with the managing partners next week to discuss whether we want to continue that relationship. The implication was clear as glass. Fire Marcus, or lose $18 million in annual revenue. That's extortion, Marcus said weakly. No, Mr. Chen. That's business. We're simply re-evaluating whether we want to work with a firm that employs an attorney currently embroiled in a scandal involving assault, infidelity, and abandonment of a newborn child. Catherine's expression didn't change. I'm sure you understand. Reputation matters in business. Marcus stood abruptly, the papers crumpling in his fist. Elena, please, just talk to me, alone. 5 minutes. Elena looked at her mother, some silent communication passing between them. Catherine nodded slightly and gestured to Rebecca and Patricia. We'll give you 5 minutes, but I'll be right outside, Doshka. After they left, Marcus moved closer to the bed. Elena, I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out. For what? Elena's voice was tired. So you can spend another year lying to me? So I can spend another year pretending I don't know you're sleeping with someone else? So Sofia can grow up watching her father disrespect her mother? I'll end things with Vivian. You should have ended things with Vivian 8 months ago. You should have ended them the moment you realized you were attracted to her. Elena adjusted her position carefully, wincing at the pain from her incision. But you didn't, Marcus. You chose to have both. The stable wife at home raising your child, and the exciting mistress making you feel young and desired. That's not fair. Neither is being slapped while in labor. Neither is going through an emergency C-section alone because my husband was with his mistress. Neither is waking up to feed our 3-hour-old daughter while you're probably at Vivian's apartment trying to figure out damage control. Elena's voice finally showed emotion, anger, sharp and clean. You want to know what's really unfair, Marcus? I loved you. I loved you so much I gave up everything to be with you. I never told you about my mother's company or my inheritance because I wanted you to love me for myself, and you couldn't even do that. I did love you. No, you loved the version of me that was convenient. The version that was grateful for your attention and didn't ask too many questions and made herself small enough to fit into your life. Elena looked at the bassinet where Sophia slept. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm a mother now. And I will not raise my daughter to think it's acceptable to be treated the way you treated me. Marcus felt something break inside him. Not love, but perhaps the last illusion he'd held about himself. He'd told himself he was the good guy, just choosing happiness. But looking at Elena now, seeing the woman he'd reduced to tears and self-doubt transformed into someone powerful and certain, he finally saw the truth. He was the villain in this story, and there was no redemption arc coming. "Can I at least meet her?" he asked quietly. "Meet Sophia?" Elena hesitated, then nodded. 2 minutes. And Marcus? Don't wake her. Marcus approached the bassinet slowly, as if the baby might shatter if he moved too quickly. Sophia lay on her back, swaddled in a pink blanket, her tiny face peaceful in sleep. She had dark hair like Elena's, delicate features, impossibly small fingers curled into loose fists. His daughter. For a moment, Marcus felt the full weight of what he'd thrown away. Not the money, though God, the money. But this tiny person who carried half his DNA. This chance to be someone's hero instead of someone's disappointment. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Yes, she is." Elena's voice was soft, and she deserves better than watching her parents destroy each other. "So here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You're going to accept the custody arrangement my mother proposed. Supervised visitation until Sophia is old enough to decide if she wants more contact with you. You're going to pay child support. The amount will be determined by the court. But given my net worth, it won't bankrupt you. And you're going to stay away from me unless absolutely necessary for Sophia's sake. And if I fight this, then my mother will use every resource at her disposal to ensure you lose everything. Your career, your reputation, your assets. She'll drag every detail of your affair into public record. She'll make sure every potential employer, every future date, everyone who Googles your name will know exactly what you did. Elena's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. Or you can take the deal, Marcus. Accept that you lost. Move on with your life. Maybe even become someone Sophia can eventually be proud to know. Marcus looked at his daughter for another long moment, memorizing her features. Then he turned back to Elena. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know it doesn't change anything. But I am truly sorry. I believe you're sorry you got caught, Elena said quietly. I believe you're sorry you lost access to a fortune you didn't know existed. I'm not sure you're sorry for hurting me, Marcus. I don't think you ever loved me enough for that. The truth of her words hit him like a punch. He wanted to argue, to defend himself. But the defense wouldn't come. Catherine returned to the room, her presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Your 5 minutes are up, Mr. Chen. You need to leave. Marcus nodded numbly and walked toward the door. As he reached it, he turned back one more time. Elena? Yes? Your mother asked me earlier if I understood what I'd thrown away. He gestured to the room, to Elena, to Sophia, to the life that could have been his. I'm starting to. Downtown Los Angeles criminal court was packed when Vivian Drake appeared for her bail hearing 3 days later. What should have been a routine proceeding had turned into a media circus after someone, probably someone on Catherine Volkov's payroll, had leaked details about the case to the press. Vivian sat at the defendant's table in a conservative dress she'd borrowed from her mother, her hair pulled back in a style meant to look demure and apologetic. Her public defender, a harried woman named Jennifer, who handled 30 cases a week, had already warned her that this wasn't going well. "The DA is asking for $100,000 bail," Jennifer had explained in their 5-minute consultation, "which is unusual for a first-time misdemeanor assault. Someone with influence is pushing for this." Vivian knew exactly who that someone was. The bailiff called the court to order, and Judge Robert Harrison entered. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and a face that had seen every human failing imaginable. He reviewed the case file with the expression of someone who'd already made up his mind. "The People versus Vivian Drake," he announced. "Ms. Drake, you're charged with assault and battery. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," Vivian said, her voice small. "Your Honor." The assistant district attorney stood. A woman named Maria Santos, who had the look of someone who enjoyed her job. "The People request bail be set at $100,000. Ms. Drake assaulted a pregnant woman in active labor, causing significant emotional distress that resulted in emergency medical intervention. The victim had to undergo an emergency cesarean section partially due to the stress from this assault." Jennifer stood. "Your Honor, Ms. Drake has no prior record. She's employed, has strong community ties, and poses no flight risk. She's already posted bail once at $20,000 without incident. Raising it to $100,000 is excessive." "Your Honor," Maria continued, "I'd like to call this incident to the court's attention." She pulled out a tablet. "This morning, Ms. Drake posted several statements on social media regarding this case. Specifically, she called the victim, who just gave birth 3 days ago, a manipulative liar and a gold digger. She also stated that the victim deserved what she got." Judge Harrison's expression darkened. "Ms. Drake, is this true?" Vivian felt her face flush. She'd been angry this morning, scrolling through Facebook and seeing all the supportive comments on Elena's post about Sophia's birth. Seeing people call Elena brave and strong. She'd lashed out without thinking about consequences. "I was upset, Your Honor. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to violate the conditions of your bail by harassing the victim?" Judge Harrison's voice was sharp. "You didn't mean to demonstrate exactly why this court should be concerned about your behavior?" "Your Honor, my client was exercising her First Amendment rights. Her First Amendment rights don't extend to harassment and witness intimidation." Judge Harrison typed something into his computer. "I'm raising bail to $100,000 and adding a condition that Ms. Drake must attend anger management counseling twice weekly. She's also forbidden from any social media posts referencing this case or the victim. If she violates these conditions, bail will be revoked and she'll remain in custody until trial." "Your Honor, my client can't afford $100,000 bail." "Then perhaps Ms. Drake should have considered the consequences before assaulting a pregnant woman and then bragging about it on social media." Judge Harrison banged his gavel. "Next case." Vivian felt her world crumbling. $100,000. She had maybe $3,000 in her bank account. Her credit cards were maxed out. Her parents lived in Idaho and had already told her they couldn't help. Her father had made that clear during a phone call where he'd called her a disgrace to the family. Marcus wasn't answering her calls. His firm had suspended him pending investigation. Even if he wanted to help her, he probably couldn't. As the bailiff led her back to the holding cell, Vivian caught sight of a woman in the gallery. Silver blonde hair, expensive suit, gray eyes that followed Vivian with the intensity of a predator watching prey. Catherine Volkov. She smiled at Vivian. It wasn't a kind smile. Elena spent the first week after Sophia's birth in a cocoon of new motherhood, surrounded by her mother's protection and resources. The hospital suite became a fortress where she learned to nurse, to change diapers, to interpret the different cries that meant hungry versus tired versus uncomfortable. Catherine hired a night nurse, but Elena insisted on doing most of the care herself. She wanted to bond with Sophia, to prove to herself that she could do this alone. Well, not entirely alone. She had her mother. And that, she was learning, was more than enough. She's awake again, Catherine observed from her chair, where she'd been reading pharmaceutical research journals. That's the 4th time in 2 hours. She likes to eat, Elena said, lifting Sophia from the bassinet. Don't you, little one? You're going to be tall like your grandmother. Catherine smiled, the expression softening her usually severe features. She has your determination. Look at how she latches on. No hesitation, just pure focus on what she wants. Elena settled into the nursing chair, adjusting Sophia's position. The movements were becoming more natural now, less awkward and uncertain. Mama, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really come back now? You could have stayed hidden, stayed safe. But you revealed yourself the exact moment Marcus left me. Why? Catherine set down her journal. Because I received a phone call from my security team leader at 9:15 p.m. 5 days ago. He was monitoring the hospital security cameras as per my standing orders whenever you were admitted anywhere. He saw Vivian Drake enter your room. He watched her assault you, and he called me immediately. You were watching me in the hospital? Doska, I've been watching you for 5 years. Security cameras, private investigators, electronic monitoring. Every moment of your life has been documented and protected. Catherine's voice was unapologetic. You think I could let you walk through the world unprotected after what happened to me? After what the Bratva tried to do? Elena should have been angry at the invasion of privacy. Instead, she felt oddly comforted. So, when Vivian hit me, I was on my private jet within 20 minutes. I landed at LAX at 10:45 p.m. I was at the hospital by 11:30, just in time to watch my granddaughter be born. Catherine's eyes shone with unshed tears. And I made a decision in that moment. The Bratva threat has been neutralized. I made certain arrangements 6 months ago that I won't detail. But I couldn't stay in the shadows anymore. Not when my daughter needed me. Not when someone hurt you and thought they could get away with it. What arrangements with the Bratva? Catherine's smile was cold. Let's just say that the people who wanted me dead have themselves met unfortunate ends. Russia is still dangerous, but I have friends in the new government, friends who ensure that the Volkov name carries weight and protection. Friends who made it very clear that touching my family would result in consequences that extend beyond mere death. Elena shivered despite the warm room. This was the side of her mother she'd never fully known, the ruthless businesswoman who'd clawed her way out of Russia with a baby and built an empire. The woman who could smile sweetly while discussing arranged deaths. Do I want to know the details? No, Sans. You don't. Catherine stood and moved to the window, looking out at Los Angeles. But you should know that you're protected now. Completely protected. Marcus Chen and Vivian Drake are minor annoyances compared to the enemies I've faced. Dealing with them will be almost disappointingly easy. What's going to happen to them? Marcus will lose his job within the week. His firm can't afford to lose Volkov Pharmaceuticals as a client, and they'll sacrifice him to keep the contract. He'll find it difficult to get hired anywhere else, as word will spread about his indiscretions. Eventually, he'll probably end up in a smaller firm making a fraction of his current salary. And Vivian? Catherine's smile widened. Vivian is going to prison. Not for long, maybe 6 months with good behavior. But a felony conviction for assault will destroy her influencer career, such as it was. More importantly, she's about to discover that she's been blacklisted from every real estate agency in Los Angeles. No one wants to employ an agent who assaults pregnant women. You can do that? Just blacklist her from an entire industry? Dochka, I'm worth $12 billion. I can do anything I want. Catherine's voice was matter-of-fact. But I won't need to do much. Vivian is destroying herself quite effectively. Did you see her social media posts before the judge ordered her to stop? Elena hadn't. She'd deliberately stayed off social media, focusing instead on Sophia and her own recovery. Catherine pulled out her phone and showed Elena screenshots of Vivian's posts. They were increasingly unhinged. Rants about Elena being a manipulative liar, about how Vivian was the real victim, about how the Volkov family was using their money to persecute an innocent woman. She's making herself look unstable, Elena observed. Yes, which will be very useful during the custody proceedings when her lawyers try to argue that her assault was an isolated incident. Catherine took back her phone. People like Vivian always reveal their true nature when they're under pressure. We just need to let her dig her own grave. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Patricia entered, carrying a large arrangement of flowers. "These just arrived for Elena," she said. "No card, but they were delivered by a service that requires significant advance payment." Elena recognized the flowers immediately. White roses and blue irises, her favorites. The arrangement Marcus had sent her after their first date, after their engagement, after their wedding. "From Marcus," she said quietly. "Should I dispose of them?" Patricia asked. Elena looked at the flowers, at this gesture that Marcus probably thought was romantic and meaningful. 3 days ago, it might have made her cry. Now she just felt tired. "No. Donate them to the nurses' station. They've been wonderful, and they deserve something beautiful." She turned back to Sophia, who'd finished nursing and was making small, satisfied sounds. "I don't need Marcus's flowers anymore. I have everything I need right here." Catherine smiled, the expression filled with fierce pride. "That's my daughter. That's my warrior." As Elena burped Sophia and settled her back into sleep, she thought about the life ahead of them. Single motherhood wasn't what she'd planned, but she had resources, protection, and a mother who'd literally faked her own death to keep her safe. Marcus and Vivian had made the mistake of thinking Elena was weak and alone. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they'd been. Elena's discharge from the hospital 5 days after Sophia's birth felt less like going home and more like a military operation. Catherine had arranged for Morrison a private car service. 2 black SUVs with tinted windows and professional drivers who'd clearly done this kind of work before. The security team swept the route, checked sight lines, and maintained communication through earpieces that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Is all this really necessary?" Elena asked as a bodyguard named Victor helped her into the back seat while another guard secured Sophia's car seat with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. "Yes," Catherine said simply, sliding in beside her. "You're worth 3.8 billion, Dochka. You're also the mother of my only grandchild. Until we're certain there are no threats, we take every precaution." The convoy pulled away from Mercy General, and Elena caught a glimpse of a photographer on the sidewalk, camera raised. Catherine had warned her that the press had discovered the story. Billionaire heiress gives birth after assault by husband's mistress made for irresistible headlines. Where are we going? Elena adjusted Sophia's blanket, the baby sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around them. Not back to my apartment, I assume. Definitely not that one bedroom in Silver Lake. Catherine's tone suggested the apartment offended her personally. We're going to the Bel-Air estate. 15 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, 3 acres of grounds, and security that would make the Secret Service jealous. I purchased it 2 years ago as a safe house. Now it's your home. Elena stared at her mother. You bought a mansion in Bel-Air 2 years ago and never mentioned it? I bought 4 properties in Los Angeles over the past 5 years. Bel-Air, Malibu, downtown penthouse, and a beach house in Santa Monica. I needed options. Places where you could be protected if you ever needed to disappear quickly. Catherine scrolled through her phone, already moving on to the next task. The Bel-Air house is the most secure. Staff quarters for the security team, panic rooms, surveillance system that covers every inch of the property. You'll be safe there while you recover. The drive through Los Angeles felt surreal. Elena watched the city pass by, the streets where she'd struggled to pay rent, the coffee shops where she'd taken translation calls on her laptop, the parks where she'd imagined pushing a stroller someday. That life felt like it belonged to someone else now. Someone smaller. Someone who hadn't yet understood her own power. The Bel-Air estate's gates opened smoothly as they approached, triggered by something in the lead SUV. The driveway wound through mature landscaping, oak trees, rose gardens, perfectly manicured lawns. The house itself was Mediterranean revival, all white stone and terracotta roof tiles, with floor-to-ceiling windows that probably offered views across the entire city. Mama, this is too much, Elena breathed. Nothing is too much for you and Sophia. Catherine helped her out of the car while Victor carefully extracted the car seat. Come, let me show you your home. The interior matched the exterior's elegance. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, artwork that Elena suspected was original rather than prints. But what struck her most was how it felt lived in, prepared. Fresh flowers in vases, soft blankets draped over furniture, the faint smell of something baking from what must be the kitchen. A woman appeared from a hallway, mid-50s, with kind eyes and capable hands. Mrs. Volkov, Ms. Elena, welcome home. I'm Margaret Chen, no relation to your ex-husband, she added with a slight smile. I'm the house manager. We have everything prepared for you and the baby. Margaret has been with the Volkov family for 15 years, Catherine explained. She managed my New York residence before I died. Now she'll manage this household and ensure you have everything you need. Margaret led them upstairs to a suite that made Elena's breath catch. A master bedroom with a king-sized bed and sitting area, an attached nursery with a crib that looked like it had been handcrafted by artisans, a rocking chair positioned perfectly by the window, and every baby item imaginable, already stocked and organized. The bathroom featured a soaking tub that Elena immediately wanted to live in. The night nurse will start tomorrow, Margaret said. But for tonight, I thought you might want privacy with the baby. I've prepared a light dinner, nothing heavy, good for nursing mothers. And there's a lactation consultant scheduled for tomorrow morning if you need any support. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. After days of hospital rooms and medical equipment, this felt like sanctuary. Thank you. Thank you. After Margaret left, Elena settled into the rocking chair with Sophia, looking out at the view of Los Angeles sprawling below them. Catherine stood in the doorway, watching them with an expression Elena couldn't quite read. What are you thinking? Elena asked. That I should have done this 5 years ago. Should have told you the truth. Brought you into the family business. Given you the protection you deserved. Catherine's voice was rough with regret. Instead, I let you struggle in that apartment, taking translation jobs for $40 an hour, married to a man who didn't deserve to breathe the same air as you. You were protecting me from the Bratva. I was protecting myself from having to face what kind of mother lets her daughter believe she's dead. Catherine moved into the nursery, sitting in the second chair near the window. I watched you grieve me, Solence. I watched you cry at my fake funeral. I watched you slowly lose weight from stress. Watched you isolate yourself because you thought you had no family left. And I did nothing because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if I revealed myself, you'd hate me for the deception. Afraid that my enemies would find you. Afraid that I couldn't keep you safe if you knew the truth. Catherine's hands twisted in her lap, a rare show of uncertainty. But I was wrong. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. Strong enough to handle the truth. Strong enough to face what Marcus did to you. Strong enough to be the mother Sophia needs. Elena felt Sophia's small body against her chest, the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. I don't hate you, Mama. I'm angry that you let me grieve for 5 years. I'm angry that I went through my pregnancy alone when I could have had you. But I don't hate you. Then what do you feel? Grateful, Elena said softly. Marcus left me at my most vulnerable, and you appeared like some avenging angel. You protected me when I couldn't protect myself. You gave me back my power when I thought I had none left. She looked at her mother. I feel grateful, and I feel ready. Ready to learn about the company. Ready to take my place in the family. Ready to show Sophia what it means to be a Volkov woman. Catherine's smile was radiant with relief and pride. Then we begin tomorrow. Patricia will bring over files on Volkov Pharmaceuticals, the research divisions, the business operations, the strategic plans for the next 5 years. You'll learn it all, and you'll be brilliant at it. What about Marcus? What about him? You said he'd lose his job. Has that happened yet? Catherine checked her phone. According to my sources at Morrison, Wright & Associates, the managing partners held an emergency meeting this morning. Marcus was terminated at 11:45 a.m. Security escorted him from the building at 12:03 p.m. His office is already being cleaned out. Elena felt a complicated swirl of emotions. Not satisfaction, exactly. More like closure. Did they give a reason? Officially, they're downsizing and his position was eliminated. Unofficially, they can't afford to lose Volkov Pharmaceuticals as a client, and I made it clear that continuing to employ Marcus Chen was incompatible with continuing our business relationship. Catherine's tone was businesslike. Marcus is a good attorney, but he's not worth $18 million annually to his firm. They made the obvious choice. And Vivian? Vivian's trial is scheduled for next month. The DA is offering a plea deal. She pleads guilty to aggravated assault, serves 6 months, 3 years probation. Her attorney is advising her to take it. But apparently Vivian still believes she can beat the charges. Catherine's smile was sharp. I hope she refuses the deal. I'd very much enjoy watching her try to defend her actions in open court. A soft buzz interrupted them. Victor appeared in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral. Mrs. Volkov, there's someone at the gate requesting entry. Marcus Chen. He's demanding to see his daughter. Elena's arms tightened around Sophia instinctively. How did he find this address? He probably hired a private investigator, or one of his remaining friends at the firm looked it up. Catherine stood. Victor, inform Mr. Chen that he's in violation of the restraining order that requires him to maintain 500 feet distance from Elena and Sophia, except during court-approved, supervised visitation. If he doesn't leave immediately, we'll call the police. Already done, ma'am. The police are en route. Mr. Chen is becoming agitated. Catherine's expression hardened. Show me. Victor pulled out a tablet showing security camera footage from the front gate. Marcus stood beside his car, gesturing wildly at the intercom, his face red with emotion. Even without audio, Elena could tell he was shouting. He looks drunk, she observed. Or desperate, Catherine replied. Either way, he's breaking the law by being here. They watched as 2 LAPD patrol cars arrived, lights flashing. The officers approached Marcus, who immediately became defensive, pointing at the gate, gesturing toward the house. One officer checked something on his radio, probably confirming the restraining order, and within minutes, Marcus was being placed in handcuffs. They're arresting him, Elena breathed. For violating a protective order, yes. Catherine seemed satisfied. He'll spend the night in jail, appear before a judge tomorrow morning, and likely have his limited visitation rights suspended pending a hearing on why he can't follow court orders. Elena watched her ex-husband being led to a patrol car, still struggling, still shouting. She felt something shift inside her chest, not quite pity, but perhaps the last remnants of whatever love she'd once felt for him, finally dying. I loved him, she said quietly. For 5 years, I loved him. How did I not see who he really was? Because he showed you the version of himself he wanted you to see, Catherine replied. Charming, successful, attentive. It's only when people face consequences that their true nature reveals itself. Marcus is facing consequences now, and what you're seeing is who he's always been underneath, entitled, selfish, and incapable of accepting responsibility for his actions. Sophia stirred against Elena's chest, making small sounds of discontent. Elena stood carefully, moving to the changing table that Margaret had stocked with every possible supply. I need to focus on her now, Elena said, changing Sophia's diaper with movements that were becoming more confident each time. Not on Marcus, not on Vivian, not on revenge. Just on being the mother Sophia deserves. Revenge and motherhood aren't mutually exclusive, Catherine observed. You can be an excellent mother while also ensuring that the people who hurt you face appropriate consequences. Is that what you did? When the Bratva came after you? Catherine was quiet for a long moment. I did what was necessary to protect you. Some of those things I'm proud of. Some I'm not, but I would do them all again if it meant keeping you safe. The next morning, Elena woke to Sophia's cries and the unfamiliar luxury of her new bedroom. For a moment, she forgot where she was, her mind still expecting the cramped apartment, the sounds of Marcus's snoring, the anxiety about money and diapers and whether she could do this alone. Then reality settled back in. Not alone, never alone again. She fed Sophia, changed her, dressed her in a tiny outfit that Margaret had left out, soft cotton printed with small elephants. By the time she made it downstairs, Catherine was already in what appeared to be a home office, on a video call with someone speaking rapid Russian. Margaret appeared with breakfast. Greek yogurt with fruit, whole grain toast, orange juice. The lactation consultant will be here at 10, she said. And Mrs. Volkov asked me to tell you that someone is waiting in the garden when you're ready. Someone? A guest. She said you'd want to meet him. Intrigued, Elena carried Sophia outside after breakfast. The garden was spectacular in the morning light, roses in bloom, a fountain trickling peacefully, and sitting on a bench beneath an oak tree was a man Elena didn't recognize. He stood as she approached. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair touched with gray at the temples, and eyes that were somehow both kind and alert. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt, but carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd seen and survived difficult things. "Ms. Volkov," he said, his voice carrying a faint accent she couldn't place. "I'm Alex Petrov. Your mother asked me to meet with you." "Petrov, that's Russian." "I am Russian, yes, or I was 30 years ago. Now I'm American, like you." He smiled at Sophia. "Your daughter is beautiful. She has your eyes." "My mother's eyes," Elena corrected. "What does Mama want us to meet about?" "I work for your mother. Have worked for her for 23 years, since she first started Volkov Pharmaceuticals." Alex gestured to the bench. "May we sit? This conversation might take some time." Elena settled onto the bench, adjusting Sophia in her arms. "What do you do for my mother?" "Officially, I'm head of corporate security for Volkov Pharmaceuticals. Unofficially, I'm the person who handles situations that require discretion." Alex's expression was carefully neutral. "I was the one who staged your mother's death 5 years ago. I arranged the fake accident, the closed casket funeral, the documentation that convinced even government agencies that Catherine Volkov was dead." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "You're the reason I thought my mother was dead for 5 years." "Yes, and I'm sorry for that pain. But I need you to understand, your mother was in genuine danger. The people who wanted her dead had already made 3 attempts on her life. The car accident was the 4th attempt, and it nearly succeeded. If I hadn't faked her death, if we hadn't gone into hiding, she would be truly dead now. And probably you as well." The Bratva, yes, but also business competitors, people who wanted her pharmaceutical formulas, politicians she'd refused to bribe, a journalist who got too close to asking the wrong questions. Alex leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "Your mother has made many enemies over the years. Most are the ordinary enemies of successful people, jealous, bitter, but ultimately harmless. A few are genuinely dangerous. And these dangerous enemies are neutralized now? Most of them, yes. 3 died in accidents that I may or may not have arranged. 2 are in Russian prisons on unrelated charges that became related when the right people made the right phone calls. 1 retired to somewhere in South America with a substantial payment and an understanding that returning to Russia or contacting the Volkov family would result in immediate death." Alex's voice never changed, discussing murder and bribery as casually as someone might discuss grocery shopping. Elena held Sophia a little tighter. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your mother wants you to understand what you're inheriting. It's not just money and pharmaceutical patents. It's enemies, threats, responsibilities that most people never have to consider." Alex's gray eyes met hers steadily. "And because I'll be your head of security now, as I've been your mother's, I need you to know what I'm capable of, what I've done, so you can decide if you trust me to protect you and your daughter." "Have you killed people?" "Yes." The simple honesty of it was somehow more shocking than euphemism would have been. "How many?" 7 over the past 23 years. All threats to your mother or to you, though you never knew you were in danger. All done in ways that appeared accidental or coincidental. Alex paused. "I'm not asking you to approve of my methods. I'm asking you to understand that this is the reality of your new life. You're worth billions of dollars. You're the sole heir to a pharmaceutical empire. You have enemies you've never met who would happily hurt you to get to your mother or to her money. And I'm one of the people standing between them and you. Elena looked down at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her arms, completely unaware that they were discussing murder and protection and a world far darker than most people ever saw. "My mother trusts you," she said finally. "She does. And you've kept her alive for 23 years. I have. Then I'll trust you too." Elena adjusted Sophia's blanket. "But I want to know everything. Every threat, every enemy, every risk. I'm done being protected through ignorance. If someone wants to hurt my daughter, I need to know about it so I can be prepared." Alex smiled, and it transformed his face from severe to almost handsome. "Your mother said you'd say something like that. She's been training me for 3 weeks to expect a very different Elena than the one I'd been watching from a distance for 5 years." "Watching from a distance? How do you think we knew about Marcus's affair? How do you think your mother had documentation of every lie, every betrayal?" Alex pulled out a phone and showed her a photo. Marcus and Vivian kissing outside a restaurant Elena recognized. "I've had teams monitoring you since your mother's fake death, making sure you were safe, documenting anything that might eventually be used to protect you." Elena should have been horrified by the invasion of privacy. Instead, she felt oddly comforted. Her mother had been watching over her, even from the grave, even when Elena thought she was completely alone. "What happened yesterday?" she asked. "With Marcus at the gate?" "He spent the night in jail. Appeared before Judge Harrison this morning. Same judge who raised Vivian's bail. The judge suspended all visitation rights pending a psychological evaluation and anger management completion." Alex scrolled through his phone. "Marcus is also being investigated by the California State Bar for potential ethics violations related to his affair and misuse of firm resources. That investigation was triggered by an anonymous complaint filed yesterday." "Let me guess. Not actually anonymous?" "Your mother's attorneys are very thorough." Alex's smile was brief. "Marcus Chen will spend the next year fighting to maintain his law license. He'll probably succeed eventually, but his reputation is permanently damaged. No major firm will hire him. He'll end up doing contract work or hanging his own shingle, making a fraction of what he made before." "And Vivian?" "Vivian rejected the plea deal yesterday afternoon. She's insisting on a trial, claiming she was defending herself against Elena's alleged verbal attacks." Alex shook his head. "Her attorney quit immediately after she rejected the deal. No lawyer wants to take a case where the client is clearly guilty, and the victim's family has unlimited resources to prosecute." "So she'll represent herself?" "No. The court will appoint a public defender, who will likely try to convince her to accept an even worse deal than the original offer." Alex stood, offering his hand to help Elena up. "Justice isn't always fast, but it's thorough when the victim has the right resources." As they walked back toward the house, Sophia began to fuss. Elena soothed her automatically, the motions becoming instinctive. "Alex," she said quietly, "if someone tried to hurt Sophia, what would you do?" He stopped walking and looked at her with eyes that had seen and done things Elena could only imagine. Whatever was necessary to ensure they never tried again. It should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt the last knot of fear in her chest loosen. She had her mother. She had resources. She had protection. And she had a man who'd spent 23 years keeping the Volkov family safe. who spoke about murder the way other people spoke about quarterly reports. Marcus and Vivian had thought they were dealing with a helpless pregnant woman. They'd actually declared war on a dynasty that had survived Russian mobsters, corporate espionage, and assassination attempts. The engagement party was 6 weeks away. Plenty of time for Catherine to plan something spectacular. Plenty of time for Marcus and Vivian to realize just how thoroughly they'd miscalculated.